The day Clara left, the house felt like a hollowed-out shell. You know that heavy silence after a storm? That's what it was like. I stood in the living room, my boots scuffing against the hardwood floor we'd sanded and stained ourselves years ago. The air still smelled faintly of her perfume, something floral and expensive, a scent she'd started wearing after her promotion. Ironic, right? The same smell that used to make me pull her close now made my stomach twist. I'll never forget how we met. Sophomore year of high school, chemistry lab. She spilled a beaker of something neon green all over my jeans, then laughed so hard she snorted. "Guess you're stuck with me now," she'd said, tossing me a wad of paper towels. Her smile was all mischief, her cheeks pink under those wild auburn curls. For 15 years, that laugh was my favorite sound. We bought this house right after we got married. A crumbling Victorian on the outskirts of town, all sagging porches and peeling paint. "It's ours," she'd whispered the first night, her breath warm against my neck as we camped out on the living room floor in sleeping bags. We spent years fixing it up, me doing the labor, her picking out fixtures. She'd twirl in the empty rooms, arms wide, saying, "One day this'll be worth $1 million, Ethan. Just wait." But then, she stopped twirling, stopped laughing. The late nights at her real estate job turned into weekends away, networking trips where her phone went straight to voicemail. I'd find her staring at her laptop, jaw tight, scrolling through listings of mansions we couldn't afford. "Why settle for this when we could have everything?" She'd snap if I asked her to put it away. The cracks got deeper. Fights about money, about the time I wasted painting murals on the kids' nursery walls. A room that stayed empty year after year. "You're too sentimental," she'd say, rolling her eyes when I'd suggest saving the original woodwork. "Sentiment doesn't pay the bills." Then came the Tuesday she came home early. I was in the kitchen, covered in drywall dust, humming some dumb song from our prom. She stood in the doorway, her blazer crisp, her nails freshly manicured. No hello, just a manila folder slid across the counter like a bomb. "Sign these," she said. Her voice was calm, like she was ordering coffee. I wiped my hands on my jeans, leaving gray streaks. My throat went sandpaper dry. "What is this?" "Divorce papers." She didn't blink. "I've been unhappy for a long time." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles turning white. "Unhappy? We'd fought, sure, but why?" The word came out cracked. She sighed, like I was a slow student. "You're stuck in the past, Ethan. This house, your nostalgia, it's holding us back. I need more." "Us?" I choked out. "There's no us in this, Clara. You didn't even talk to me." Her lips thinned. "Talking won't fix it. Just sign. The house is mine. It's in my name, and you know it's the only asset worth fighting for. Take your tools, your memories, and let's make this clean." I stared at her. Same freckles on her nose, same scar above her eyebrow from the time we'd crashed our bikes as kids. But her eyes, God, her eyes were glacier cold, a stranger's eyes. "You're taking the house?" "I'm taking everything." She leaned closer, and for a second I thought I saw her flinch. "But it's better this way. You'll never have to worry about the market, about failing." My chest caved in. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to beg. But all I did was nod. "I understand." She left without looking back. Her heels clicked down the porch steps, sharp and final. I stood there, gripping those papers until the edges cut into my palm. The house creaked around me, the way old houses do, like it was sighing. Our house, her house now. That night, I crawled into the nursery, the one she'd called a waste of space. Moonlight spilled through the window, lighting up the mural I'd painted. A forest, with 2 kids holding hands, chasing fireflies. I pressed my forehead against the wall and finally let myself cry. How did we get here? Wasn't love supposed to be enough? But under the grief, something else flickered. A tiny, stubborn spark. She thinks I'm done. She's wrong. The next morning, I woke up on the nursery floor, my back stiff and my eyes swollen. Sunlight glared through the window, turning the painted fireflies into blurry smudges. I reached for my phone, 6:03 a.m., and saw 3 missed calls from Clara. Her last text glared up at me. Sign the papers by noon, or I'll make sure you regret it. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. Regret what? Taking her back? Fighting her? Breathing? I stumbled to the kitchen, my throat raw, and poured a glass of water. The tap squeaked the way it always had, but now the sound felt accusing. You should have fixed me, it seemed to say. You should have fixed everything. I didn't sign the papers. Not that day. Instead, I drove to the one place I knew Clara wouldn't follow. My older brother's auto shop. Jake was under a pickup truck when I walked in. Grease streaked across his forehead. He took one look at me and froze. Jesus, Ethan, you look like hell. I laughed, a jagged, broken sound. Clara's divorcing me. She wants the house. Everything. He dragged a hand down his face, leaving a black smear. That bitch. The word hung in the air, sharp and satisfying. What are you going to do? What could I do? I'd spent years designing homes for other people, but my own life was collapsing. I need a lawyer, I said quietly. A good one. Jake didn't ask questions. He just pulled out his wallet and handed me a business card. Guy helped me when my ex tried to take the shop. He's expensive, but here. He tossed me his truck keys. Take the Silverado. Sell it if you have to. My chest tightened. That truck was his pride and joy. Jake, I can't. Shut up, he said, shoving a screwdriver into his pocket. You do the same for me. The lawyer's office was downtown, all glass walls and cold, modern furniture. I sat in the waiting room, picking at a thread on my jeans, while a receptionist eyed me like I'd tracked mud on the pristine white rug. Maybe I had. Mr. Cole? A man in a tailored suit appeared, extending a hand. Mark Vellon, let's talk. His office smelled like leather and too strong coffee. I slumped into a chair while he skimmed Clara's divorce papers, his expression unreadable. Finally, he looked up. She's claiming full ownership of the house? It's in her name, I muttered. We bought it after her first big commission. She said it'd be safer that way. Safer for her, I realized now. Mark steepled his fingers. Any joint accounts? Shared assets? Our savings. She already drained half. And what do you have? I thought of my rusty toolbox, my dad's old watch, the '98 Corolla with a busted AC. Nothing she'd want. He leaned forward, his voice low. Ethan, unless you've got a prenup or hidden assets, she's right. She could take everything. The room spun. Hidden assets. The words slithered into my brain, sticky and dangerous. That night, I sat cross-legged in the attic, dust motes dancing in the beam of my flashlight. Clara hated this space. It's just junk, Ethan. But I'd always tucked things away here. Old sketchbooks, love letters from our first year of dating, a shoebox of Polaroids. And then, under a stack of blueprints, the deed. My grandfather's cabin. 10 acres of overgrown woods, 4 hours north. He'd left it to me when I turned 18, but Clara had rolled her eyes when I suggested fixing it up. It's a money pit, she'd said. Let it rot. But here it was, the paper brittle but legible. Ethan Cole, sole owner, My pulse thundered in my ears. Was this a loophole? Clara's texts buzzed in my pocket. Last chance. Sign now or I'll ruin you. I didn't answer. Instead, I called Jake. You know any contractors who work off the books? For weeks, I told Clara I was packing. Technically true. Every morning I drove to the cabin, hauling lumber and paint in Jake's truck. My hands blistered from shoveling debris, my lungs burning from mold and sawdust. But with every rotten floorboard I ripped up, I felt lighter, stronger. One afternoon, as I scrubbed grime off the cabin's stone fireplace, my phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Ethan Cole? A man's voice, brisk and professional. I'm calling about your property listing. The cabin. I froze. Had I posted that yet? Yeah, I stammered. It's a teardown, but the land's valuable. We'll take it. Cash offer, $750,000. The numbers punched the air from my lungs. $750,000. Enough to pay off the mortgage on Clara's house, enough to start over. But as I whispered, deal, guilt curdled in my stomach. This wasn't just a cabin. It was my last tether to the man I used to be, the one who believed in love. Clara's voice hissed in my memory. You're too soft to fight back. This time I smiled. The day I handed Clara that check, I wore the same flannel shirt she'd bought me for our anniversary. Poetic justice, I thought, buttoning it up with shaky fingers. The fabric smelled like sawdust and sweat now, not her perfume. I'd asked her to meet at the house one last time. To say goodbye, I'd texted. She agreed instantly. Probably thought I'd beg. But when I pulled into the driveway, her silver Lexus was already there, gleaming under the October sun. Of course. She'd never been late to anything that served her. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside, my boots echoing in the empty living room. All our furniture, gone. Even the curtains. Clara stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, her red blazer sharp enough to cut glass. She didn't turn around. You're late, she said. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Traffic. She finally faced me, her smile thin and practiced. So, here to sign? She nodded at the papers on the mantel. My pulse roared in my ears. Stay calm. Don't let her see you shake. I reached into my back pocket, pulled out the folded check, and held it out. What's this? She plucked it from my fingers, her nails glossy and perfect. $5,000. All I owe you. Her smirk faltered. Ethan, the house alone is worth... paid off. The words came out steadier than I felt. Mortgage is cleared. The cabin covered it. The cabin? Her laugh was brittle. That rotting shack in the woods? Don't be pathetic. I stepped closer, my heartbeat a drum in my ribs. Sold it last week. To a developer. For $750,000. Her face went slack. For the first time in years, Clara looked lost. You lied to me. That cabin wasn't in the divorce decree? I cut her off. Number because you never asked, and Grandpa left it to me before we married. It was never yours. The silence was deafening. Somewhere outside, a car honked. Clara's knuckles whitened around the check, crumpling it. You think you're clever? She hissed. I'll take you to court. You'll lose. I pulled a copy of the deed from my bag, the one I'd kept buried in a safe deposit box. Your lawyer already knows. Ask him. She snatched the paper, her eyes darting over the words. I watched her throat move as she swallowed. Once, twice, her perfume was choking me now, cloying and sour. You planned this, she whispered. You let me think you'd given up. I didn't answer. Truth was, I hadn't planned anything, not at first. That night in the attic, finding the deed, I'd acted on pure survival instinct. But as the cabin's walls took shape under my hands, so did my resolve. Every nail I'd hammered felt like reclaiming a piece of myself she'd chipped away. Why? Her voice cracked, and for a second, I saw the girl from the chemistry lab again, the one who'd cried when her goldfish died. Why not just fight me? I almost laughed. You taught me not to fight, Clara. You taught me to work in silence. She flinched. The deed slipped from her fingers, fluttering to the floor. Later, sitting in Jake's truck, I replayed her face 100 times. The shock, the rage, the flicker of something like regret. But the guilt I'd expected? It never came. Instead, I felt calm. The kind of calm you get after a storm, when the air is still heavy but the worst has passed. I drove to the cabin one last time before handing it over. The sold sign swayed in the wind, nailed crookedly into the dirt. Inside, the rooms smelled of fresh paint and pine. Sunlight streamed through the new windows, catching dust motes that danced like the fireflies in my mural. My phone buzzed. Clara. You win, but don't think this makes you a better person. I didn't reply. Instead, I knelt in the empty living room and pressed my palm to the floorboards I'd sanded raw. Thanks, Grandpa, I whispered. As I stood to leave, my boot scuffed something under the doorframe. A Polaroid, half buried in sawdust. Young Clara and me, grinning on the porch of our fixer-upper, holding a sign that said, "Future Home of the Coles." Her curls were wild, my paint-splattered hand wrapped around her waist. I tucked the photo into my wallet. Not because I missed her, because I wanted to remember the man I'd been, the one who believed in building things that lasted. Then I locked the cabin door and didn't look back. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office, a tiny rented space above a coffee shop, when she walked in. No knock, no warning. Just the creak of the door and the sharp click of heels on hardwood. Clara. She stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the afternoon sun. But something was off. No blazer, no polished smirk. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, her face bare except for dark circles under her eyes. For the first time in a decade, she looked human. I froze, my pen hovering over a blueprint. The scent of her vanilla lotion hit me first, the same kind she'd worn when we were broke and couldn't afford perfume. My chest tightened. Why now? We need to talk, she said, voice trembling. I leaned back, forcing my face to stay neutral. You lost in court, twice. We're done talking. She shut the door and sat across from me, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles blanched. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air, sharp and suffocating. The coffee shop downstairs suddenly felt miles away, the hum of the espresso machine fading into white noise. Pregnant. My eyes dropped to her stomach, flat beneath a loose sweater. Is it? I couldn't finish. Yours. She pulled a crumpled ultrasound photo from her purse. 12 weeks, from that night before everything. My mind flashed to the last time we'd slept together. A desperate, angry night after she'd served me papers. We'd both cried after. I'm sorry, she'd whispered. I don't know why I'm like this. Now I stared at the grainy black and white image, the tiny bean-shaped blur. A baby. My baby. The room tilted. What do you want? My voice came out cold, foreign. She flinched. I'm keeping it, but I can't do this alone. A tear slid down her cheek and she wiped it furiously, like anger could erase the fear. I need help, Ethan. For a split second, I almost reached for her. Almost. Then I saw it, the flicker in her eyes, the same calculated glint she'd had when she'd taken the house. You're lying, I said slowly. I'm not! She shoved the ultrasound toward me. Test me. Do a paternity test. But you know the timing adds up. I did, and that's what terrified me. That night, I drove to Jake's shop. He took one look at me, tossed his wrench aside, and wordlessly handed me a beer. I slumped against a stack of tires, the cold metal biting through my shirt. "What if it's mine?" I whispered. Jake sighed. "You gonna raise a kid with Satan?" "She's not." "She's exactly that," he snapped. "This is a trap, Ethan. She's broke, her career's tanking, and you're the guy who just made bank. Think." But all I could think about was the nursery mural, the empty room I'd painted for a child we'd never had. The paternity test took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of Clara texting me photos of prenatal vitamins, sonogram updates, and a onesie that said, "Daddy's little demolition expert." I deleted everyone. But I didn't block her. The day the results came, I sat in my parked car outside the clinic for an hour, staring at the envelope. My hands shook so badly I tore the corner opening it. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. I crushed the paper in my fist, screaming until my throat burned. Why? Why now? Why her? When I finally called her, she answered on the first ring. "Meet me at the old house," she said. "We'll talk there." The house was dark, the sold sign long gone. New owners had painted it gray, ripped out the porch swing, and replaced our hand-carved front door with something cheap and modern. It didn't even creak anymore. Clara stood in the empty living room, her hoodie swallowing her frame. She looked small, scared, real. "I'm sorry," she said, hugging herself, "for everything. I was jealous. You were always better at loving things than me." I said nothing. "But this baby?" She pressed a hand to her stomach. "It's a chance to fix what I broke, to be a family." The word family slithered into my chest, warm and toxic. I thought of the cabin money, my fledgling business, the peace I'd clawed back. All gone if I said yes. "What do you want?" I asked again, colder this time. She stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "Marry me, not for real, just for a year. Help me get back on my feet. Then you can leave. I'll sign whatever you want." The air thickened. Somewhere upstairs, a pipe groaned. "Or what?" I said softly. "You'll take me to court? Sue for full custody?" Her breath hitched. "I don't want to fight. I want you." For a heartbeat, I almost believed her. Then I saw it, the edge of a folder peeking out of her bag. The same manila color as the divorce papers. Old habits. I turned and walked out, the new door clicking shut behind me. "Wait!" she screamed from inside, her voice raw. "Ethan, please!" I didn't stop, but halfway to my car, I froze. Because the Clara I knew never begged. 2 days later, I sat in a hospital waiting room, the fluorescent lights buzzing like trapped flies. Clara's voicemail played on a loop in my head. "Ethan, something's wrong. They said the baby's heartbeat." Her voice broke and the recording cut off. I'd ignored her calls for 48 hours. But when Jake showed up at my office, holding a printout of her emergency room admission, I caved. "You don't owe her anything," he'd growled. But I owed myself the truth. The nurse led me to room 214. Clara lay in the bed, ivy snaking into her arm, her face pale as the sheets. She turned her head slowly, and when our eyes met, she didn't smirk, didn't sneer. She just cried. "They think I'm losing it," she whispered. The air smelled like antiseptic and fear. I pulled a chair to her bedside, my legs numb. "Why'd you call me?" "Because you're the father," she said, her voice cracking. "And I'm scared." A monitor beeped steadily in the corner. For years, I'd dreamed of her apologizing, of her hurting like she'd hurt me. But this felt like swallowing glass. "Was any of it real?" I asked. "The baby? Or was this another game?" She closed her eyes. At first I thought, maybe I could trap you. Use the baby to get the cabin money. A tear slid down her temple. But then I saw the ultrasound, heard the heartbeat, and I realized I don't know how to love something that doesn't earn it. The admission hung between us, raw and ugly. Clara had always treated love like a transaction. You give me this, I'll give you that. But a baby? A baby just needs. What now? I said. She opened her eyes, staring at the ceiling. If I lose it, you're free. If I don't, I'll sign over custody. You can raise it, I'll disappear. My chest tightened. It. She couldn't even say. The baby. You'd really do that? I'm not you, Ethan, she said bitterly. I don't know how to fix things. I just know how to break them. The doctor came in an hour later, clipboard in hand. The heartbeat stabilized, she said, but there's a complication. Placenta previa. Bed rest, no stress. You'll need support. Clara laughed, a hollow, broken sound. Support, right. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car outside the hospital, replaying the doctor's words. Bed rest, no stress. Clara had no family, no friends who'd stick around, just me and the baby, my baby. The next morning, I brought her a duffel bag of clothes, her favorite coconut water, and a legal document. She raised an eyebrow when I handed it to her. Custody agreement, I said. You sign it, and I'll help you until the baby's born. After that, you walk away. No contact, no games. She read it slowly, her hands trembling. You don't trust me. Would you? She signed without another word. For 5 months, I drove her to appointments, paid her rent, and bit my tongue when she criticized my choice of prenatal vitamins. We never talked about us, never talked about the past. But sometimes, when she thought I wasn't looking, I'd catch her staring at her bump, her face soft and confused, like she couldn't figure out how to hate it. The night she went into labor, I held her hand. She screamed curses at me, the doctors, the universe, then went silent when they placed a squalling, red-faced boy on her chest. He looks like you, she muttered, tears streaming down her face. I expected her to fight, to refuse to let go. But when the nurse asked for the baby's name, Clara just looked at me and said, "His dad will decide." I named him Samuel, after my grandfather. Clara signed the papers the next day. As she handed them over, she paused. "Will you tell him about me?" "Yes," I said, "but not the ugly parts, just the girl who spilled chemicals on me in chem lab." She nodded, her eyes glassy. Then she walked out of the hospital, her suitcase rolling behind her. I watched her go. Samuel curled against my chest, his tiny fist gripping my thumb. "Let's go home," I whispered. Epilogue. Samuel's 6 now. He's got Clara's curls and my obsession with crayons. We live in a little house near Jake's shop. And the nursery mural? It's pinned above his bed. Sometimes he asks about his mom. I tell him she's figuring things out, and he shrugs, content with Legos and grilled cheese. Clara sent one letter. No return address. Just a photo of our old house, and a note. I sold it. Finally got my everything. It's emptier than I remembered. I burned it. But that night, I took Samuel to the cabin, now a cozy Airbnb, and showed him the fireplace I rebuilt. "This is where I learned to start over," I said. He pressed his palm to the stone. "It's warm, Daddy?" "Yeah, it is.